Hello everyone, welcome back to the IT blog. Today we're going to discuss a very foundational piece of technology and enables a lot of cybersecurity professionals and organizations increase their security posture. It's intrusion detection systems and intrusion prevention systems. So in this blog, I really wanted to touch base on examples of IDSs and IPSs because there is knowledge out there discussing what they are as a abstract piece. In my opinion, every time I read some of these literatures, I kind of like, okay, but where does it fall in place uh, regarding my whole security posture? Is it part of a firewall? Is it not part of a firewall? Uh, so I wanted to really just kind of give examples so that way you're able to just view and say, okay, I get what that is, I get what this is. So, and let's start with the first, the IDS. And IDS actually was the first piece of technology to come into play versus an IPS. An IDS is an alerting system. It's a piece of software they it's system inside sitting inside of a host, and it'll gather uh, registry information depending on the type of IDS. So on a host-based IDS, that'll gather critical information relating to and logs relating to the endpoint itself. It could be a Windows 10, Windows 11, Mac, Linux, um, uh, desktop computer, and then gather any type of critical information relating to a file, try to modify a registry or a group policy, or try to attempt to log into or modify files inside of an administrator folder, things like that. And this is, and I give examples on two examples of an IDS, host host-based IDS. The OffSec is an example here, and a security onion for the network intrusion detection system, which is the network side. They'll inspect the packets coming in and out of the system. And obviously security onion it also works as an IPS, but because a lot of these technologies end up becoming blended, an IDS really is an alerting, doesn't proactively prevent these attacks. And so when it comes to the implementation in real world, I have never worked with an IDS in real world environment. Typically, these are implemented in a very highly secure environment where they have a lot of funding, and meaning they're able to view um, these logs continuously, and they apply a lot of meaning to this. So if you have 100 systems that are extremely critical, and think of like things that we don't really even think about, like the DNS servers. Like Google's DNS servers are highly sensitive. Where if you're up there in the root of your DNSs, and you're applying a lot of these domain registry forwards and things of that nature, you don't want any of these servers to have some type of malicious malware making modifications to these records. So, or even someone taking over some of these servers. So I would definitely have an IDS implemented, because an IPS can come up with some issues where, because they're actively preventing these attacks, these frameworks, these whatever the attacker's using to compromise your system. Sometimes it can cause services to stop. In some cases, it's good. Other cases, it is not, because the services are highly available. So you need to make sure that first is legitimate. You want a human look at it and say, okay, yes, this is legitimate. This actually is worth stopping everything. Or no, it is not legitimate. Keep everything going. So an IDS is helpful on things like that. Things like hospitals as well. You don't want any of your critical systems either record keeping for uh, what's happening with the patient, things like that. You want those systems to be very highly available, and the integrity to be very high, meaning there's no modifications. You're guaranteed, hey, all these files never been modified or touched. That will help to help alleviate some of those doubts, An IDS would help on that. A host-based IDS will help on that. Now, what is an IPS, right? An IPS is just that additional piece, that prevention piece of an IDS. There is no removing of any, uh, I guess, features of an IDS. There's just adding one feature of preventing. So instead of just alerting, it will alert as well as prevent the attack from occurring, or as it's happening, it'll just stop it in its tracks. And so it generates these logs. And what do you do with these logs? Obviously, you read through them, and this is where I was like when I first got into security, I was a little off. It's okay, like now what, right? So it's actively preventing, and then okay, I add that into my firewall rule, and then that's it. Really, it generates logs, and you're supposed to send those logs to a SIM. In your SIM, you view then active attack while it's preventing the attack. You don't want that same attack just to keep occurring, keep occurring. Really, you dig deep into where it's coming from, where it's sourced by. Is there an external IP? Is somebody from outside the organization? Somebody from outside got inside and is now a compromised host inside. So it's really it does prevent your attack, but thing is an attack could also crash your system. An IPS takes a lot of resources. And so this is one of the pieces I mentioned here in the blog, which is separating your IPS from your firewall. And most organizations will bundle, and I would recommend that bundling it. It becomes a little bit more complicated just by separating it. You have just different more pieces to troubleshoot. You also want to make sure uh, you keep your IPS patched. If you have an IPS, you don't want it to be unpatched and then that be compromised. You have all those logs being falsified. So uh, an attack could crash your firewall if you have an IPS bundled inside of your firewall and you have an attack inside of your system and it's just causing always having you process the same um, uh, piece of attack. It will continuously prevent it, but take up the resources. All of a sudden, you get it's like a DDoS attack. So um, it's important to observe those logs and in a way that's proactively researching these attacks as they're occurring. And an IPS it works the same way as an IDS. You can have um, one of the examples that I laid here was Snort. Snort is a an IPS. Cisco has them. It uses Snort. Made purchase of Snort, and uses as an engine inside of its firewalls. But you can set up a separate instance of Snort inside your system, inside your network, I should say, and you have agents sitting in each host, and it'll pass the traffic through it. And so you send the traffic to the host, to the your IPS, and it'll gather all the log and information, and you can send that log to your SIM after that. And so that becomes a little bit more complex on the deployment. Typically, I'll recommend an organization just pony up for that extras features. I think it's called, FortiGate calls it Unified Threat Management, and really it's just I don't know. It depends on the size of the firewall, but it's a couple $1,000 upgrade, and then you have those prevention features inside your firewall. You do have to keep in mind though, the hardware it matters. So if one firewall you're good with 1 gig throughput, but okay, so I want IPS, I want a full threat protection. Okay, well, in order for you to be able to process that, you need like 10 gig, 25 gig throughput. So because of that, it will, in regard not your output, just you're able to process that much, that means you need to increase hardware, memory, CPU, all of that. Um, so the price does go up substantially, but it is worth it. And one of the things I do want to discuss here is how do you convince your bosses, right? Your CEOs, your executives who don't really understand these technologies. A lot of the organizations, small SMBs, they have a CEO, they have an accountant, sometimes they have HR, and then Usually HR would take over a lot of the IT stuff or operations, right? They'll have their head of operations, and that's typically the team there until they start having problems, and then they call in someone who with some IT background, and then hope that they just handle everything. Um, so one of the key pieces to convincing that I've personally used is putting a value to your business continuity. Okay, so if something occurs, how quickly would you like me to respond? Uh, do you want me to be proactive, or do you kind of want me to sit on my hands a little bit and then respond a day or two later while you're having these problems? And typically, the CEO will say, "Well, I want you to respond right away." And really the action after that is okay. In order for me to respond right away, I need visibility and I need technology that will assist me in responding right away. I cannot do it by myself. It is literally impossible. Um, and just communicating that bridge of there's no magic to this. There is just it's really and there's organizations that are funding these business problems. I'm talking about Disney, obviously Microsoft, Apple, all these organizations are have Google. All these organizations have the same problems as SMBs. It's just they go and complain. They say, "Hey, there's no way that we're dealing with all this. Like we have to find a solution." And these vendors, these engineers, they build pieces of solutions. And what they do, they solve that solution for the big people, for the big organizations, and then they make a smaller version of it so it's affordable for everyone. It's not it's not like it's like we're not reinventing the wheel. It's just that a lot of these CEOs, these business owners, have no idea what technology can do for them. And if they do, some like they're using Google Sheets or they're using Gmail. Why? Because it's super easy and it's awesome. So everyone should use Gmail. But then when they go down the line, when they need to start managing these accounts, then you start doing these things, then you start taking over accounts, and you just start just privacy is a concern. They start dabbling into some PII information. Then it becomes we want these privacy features. Well, you can't. Your infrastructure is really built for this, not for that. So it's very important for a lot of SMBs. If you're listening to my videos, please just take account for reach out to a consultant. A lot of business owners don't like consultants because they feel like they're selling them on everything. They probably are, but hire a good IT professional, preferably with management experience, and have them be that middle um, person to kind of that buffer to kind of say, okay, well that really is not necessary for you, but this is. You should listen to this, um, and really just help your organization go towards the right direction. I've even had I guess not business owners, but high level management discuss why we need antivirus. I even had IT professionals just tell me Windows Defender's fine. It's just like um, which it is. It's just there's no central way to manage Windows Defender. So it's great if you just have an endpoint, if you just have one endpoint. But if you have 50, right? How do you make sure that how do you modify policies for everything? How do you make sure that they're live and active, not disabled, right? Those are very critical questions to ask relating to antivirus. Same thing with IPSs. Well, if we have an attack coming in, um, and it's at 2 a.m., what's the likelihood that it's going to be between 8 to 5 or 9 to 5? Right? It's unlikely. So it'll happen either really early in the morning or really late at night. I'm not going to be awake, right? Or I mean, if you want me to be work, I mean, and then you have to hire another body, right? But even then, we're not going to be able to see everything. We are unable to visibly see everything that's happening within our network. Right now, I have my camera up and I got a computer going on. I got my phones connected to my Wi-Fi. I'm not seeing everything that's being processed. An IPS and an IDS allows you to see and have more visibility of really what's going on, and that's why I got this eye up here. Really see what's going on with the network side and on the host side of all the changes that are occurring. So that's my take. I really hope you guys got value out of this. Please like, share, and subscribe. Comment down below if there's anything here particularly you want me to expand on more. I just sorry about my throat. I just got off of um, sickness, so I'm just gotten better. I really want to hop in here and finish up this blog, but let me know um, if there's anything else that you would like to hear out of me. I'm gonna continue to pump out some more of these videos. Really appreciate it. Thanks everyone. Peace.